And we're live, Martin. You would think that we were pros at this. The number of lives that me and you have done
It's
over
surprising
over the years,
over the
absolutely
years.
over the years, folks. Welcome. If you are watching on LinkedIn now, welcome either live or on the replay. So, welcome very much to this chat, this virtual coffee. And I'm delighted to welcome Mr. Martin Gilchrist, who is a very, very dear friend of mine. And one of the first people I wanted to get on board was Martin because of his expertise in the profession. So really, really delighted to have Martin involved, and we're going to talk about setting up your own business, especially and specifically in accounting. But we'll have some general tips. If you're not fully based in accounting, we'll have a lot of takeaways for you as well. So without further ado, Martin, tell us a bit about yourself. Who is Martin Gilchrist of Gilchrist & Co. Chartered Accountants?
Well, you took away my first line there. That's what I always say. As you know, James.
I know.
Martin Gilchrist. Martin Gilchrist from Gilchrist & Co. Chartered Accountants. Essentially, what my role is in the practice is I'm the practice manager. So that's everything from going out and telling the story of the practice to the world, to building a network of contacts and relationships around the practice, to bringing in new clients, administering while I'm in the practice, doing the credit control, and looking after the staff. So that's what Martin Gilchrist does in a nutshell. What Gilchrist & Co does is we are a small but growing practice that's focused on the needs of professional people who work for and by themselves, so freelancing professionals. And what I mean by a growing practice is that for a number of years, it was just Michelle and myself. So Michelle's the principal, Michelle Gilchrist, FCA, who is my wife, but who is also a fantastic and highly experienced and very capable chartered accountant, and who is the principal of the practice. But we now also have a higher level apprentice training at the University of Ulster and working with us, James. And we have an intern, a fantastic intern working with us at the moment, a young man called Matthew Rutherford Jones. So that's us in a nutshell.
Absolutely excellent. I'm going to give a few shouts out to people and folks whoever's watching online. Make sure you put a message up, put up a comment, and as I'm going to put up in the banner here, engage, comment, ask questions, and enjoy what we're going to be discussing, because you're equally as part of this conversation. And what I would love to know is, I know I've got a number of people around the world. Let me know where you're joining us from as well. It'll be really, really interesting. So first of all, Aaron, how you doing? Aaron and myself got acquainted a number of months ago, give him some advice regarding career, etc. And I'm delighted to say things have really worked out for Aaron. So good afternoon. Good afternoon to Sahid as well. We worked together a number of times regarding exams, etc. So good afternoon as well. My good friend, Peter Connon, how you doing? It's actually, do you know something? I might get Peter on to one of these as well. So good afternoon, Peter. Kazim, how are you doing as well? Good to chat to you. Our good common friend, Martin, Peter Doak, is on board.
He's a good man to know.
Good man to know. And Kervin as well, who I've been chatting to over the last number of weeks, etc. And Kervin is actually from Mauritius, but living in Ireland. So good to see you all as well. So folks, absolutely, please engage, comment, ask questions. This is your forum as much as it is ours. Now, the great thing, and before we get into some of the questions, I just want to let people know how me and Martin actually met. And as I say, folks, I say this to all my clients, whether it be exam or career, is that the good old saying, you're the average of the 5 or 6 people you hang about with the most. And I'm very glad to have Martin as one of those 5 or 6 people that you trust, and that is a sounding board for your ideas. But it's rare. It's incredible how we only met 4 years ago, Martin.
Unbelievable. When you think about the amount of stuff we've fitted in.
And the stuff that we have done.
Yeah.
The story, very quick story, was we were at an Ulster Bank event. Martin was sitting in front of me. I think we heard the word accountant. We both turned towards each other, had a chat, and discovered that we lived less than 5 miles away from each other. and the fact that my cousin is married to Martin's sister, which is another incredible connection as well. And my dad knows your parents too, so incredible, and the amount of things that flowed from that. And the one thing, folks, that I have to point out straight away, and we'll probably come on to this, is that Martin has taught me so much, especially regarding building a network and a community. And that's been one of the most powerful tools I've ever had. And I've always had to thank Martin, so much so I have actually dedicated the book to Martin, which is incredible. Okay, so what we will do is let's crack on with a couple of questions, Martin, and give some info to our good folks that are watching. So how did you and Michelle, how did you come up with the idea of Gilchrist & Co? When did you take the plunge to go, okay, we're actually going to start our own practice?
Crazily enough, we decided to do and start our practice in the middle of the last recession, way back in 2007. And what it all boiled down to, if you look at the essence of why we decided and where we got the idea for our practice, it all boiled down to value.
Yeah, absolutely.
What value were we getting out from the work we were doing and our careers? And what value were the people we were working with? And we're not just talking about paying clients, we're talking about our whole contact circle. What value were they getting from the activities we are undertaking? So when we founded Gilchrist & Co, initially, the premise was to be a value multiplier, both for ourselves and our clients, to find a way that everybody was a winner in that relationship. Yeah. So what we decided to do was to set up what we described at the time as a cottage industry for the modern age. A cottage industry for the modern age. And what we meant by that was there's a lot of traditional things that we like, you know, the things that everybody wants: to live in the countryside, to have your family around you, to have the flexibility to come and go as you please, to work with and to be surrounded, as you've just intimated, James, with the people that, you know, make your life better. Yeah. But at the same time as that, as having that lovely rural idyll and that cottage industry sort of vibe, we wanted to be in the modern age. So that would have been, at the time, even back then, there was opportunities to use cloud-based technologies to reach out and to provide services to people in a way that hadn't existed even 5 or 6 years before that. Mm-hmm. So that's where Gilchrist & Co came from.
And we are both blessed to live in, and you're talking about the cottage industry, to live in a rural idyll. We're very blessed to live in one of the most beautiful parts of Ireland, and so we're blessed to do that, and I think we both appreciate that as well with our walks, etc. In terms of, you mentioned services, Martin. If someone watching this was going, okay, I would love to start either my own business or more specifically an accountancy business, what services should they offer first?
Tricky enough question, James, because
I love asking hard questions, Martin.
And the thing about this is, and it's only my opinion. You know, I can only give my opinion, my view, my bias on this. But my bias on this would be, in your initial services, if you're starting a business, start with what you know. And start with what you have. It may be a cliche, but it's true. Those things that you have a passion for, that you would almost do without getting paid. So try and find that aspect, and certainly in accountancy or professional practice, to find that area of the accounting environment where you can become the guy or the girl who is the specialist, and you love having that role. You love being asked questions about it. You love getting involved in it. You love the technicalities of it, and focus on that. Because as a small business, you can't be all things to all people. And then Gilchrist & Co, what we decided to do is we wanted to have that sense of, you know, an old-fashioned family GP. The guy that he knows your children, he knows you, he knows your parents, he knows the community you're from, he knows what you're about, the good and the bad, and looks after you really well, all the better because of that. Mm-hmm. That was the type of accountancy firm that we wanted to be. We wanted to be embedded in our community, really good, close, long-term relationships with our clients, providing exactly the value and the service that they required. So what that meant to us was that when we were picking our services, we were picking those core services in the same way that a GP does core services, but you can't do an eye operation. You go to the hospital for that. Yeah. We look after self-assessment tax returns, corporation tax returns, VAT, and payroll. So that's how we selected what we were going to do.
And that's fantastic, Martin, because maybe we'll touch upon this later on. You're talking about cloud-based services, etc. And because of technology, it's actually really easy to make things sterile, if you know what I mean. So
Mhm.
you've hit it the nail right in the head about relationships, and especially in today's world and where we are with things, it is about those relationships, and it's about having that personal touch. And actually, the analogy of the GP is really really good.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's just shout out to a few more people here. Rihanna, good afternoon to you as well. We've been chatting backwards and forwards in DMs. Great to see you. My Martin Malseat, how are you as well? I think we both know Martin.
Absolutely, yeah.
Who else have we got? We've got Tom Earp, a good friend of mine over in the US, who's a fellow professional in the universities and in terms of career. Deborah, good afternoon as well. We've had a number of conversations. Enzamil, how are you? Zahid actually asks a question here. Let's maybe touch on this. Really good question, Zahid. Martin, what would you say is the best way of going to look for your niche rather than being everything to everyone, a jack of all trades? So I know you're talking about independent professionals and those SMEs. So how did you niche down to those areas?
Well, how we did it was before we set up the practice Gilchrist & Co, where I joined my wife, and as she's the principal in the practice, I was working as a freelance consultant in the legal environment because my degree was in law. So I was focusing in an area that I was expert in. And because of that, I had an in-reach, I had access to barristers working out of the Bar Library in Belfast. Now, a historical quirk of law in Northern Ireland is that all barristers work from the one building in Belfast. It's the Bar Library. And that gave me fish in a bucket.
Oh, man. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I knew a couple, and then once you get a couple of clients on an environment like that, referrals just blow your market wide open for you.
Yeah.
You've got your work coming in, and they're very easy to get in front of. So you put on an event in the Bar Library, which we did on occasion, you're going to be able to get them very easily. So find something like that. Now, it doesn't have to be a particular type of person, but it has to be something that you can say, you know what, this is my area. Mm-hmm. And my area at the very start was accounting for barristers. Now, the reason we were able to expand out of that quite quickly was that barristers have brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers and friends who are doctors and architects and web designers and music producers and all the rest. And once you've got a reputation with one group, even if you say, my niche is legal accounting, other people, because of the referrals you're getting, want to come and work with you as well. And from our perspective, the set of accounts that we do for a barrister isn't that much different from what we would do from a locum doctor or a web developer or a music producer or people that you might see on TV. So that very nicely opened up a broader marketplace to us, even though in the first instance we were looking at a niche barristers working at the Bar Library in Northern Ireland.
And I'm going to contradict myself in a way, but that broader aspect is still niched.
It is.
Because independent professional practitioners, which is really, really good. And I'm exactly the same. You know, I could call myself the exam coach, or I could call myself the career coach, but I want to specialize with the people I am very, very common with, and who, to be honest, Martin, through my time in Grant Thornton and through my time in industry, the people that I had the empathy with which was my staff. But I still think I'm relatively young, so I can still remember 15 years ago.
You're still very young.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Where I can still remember going through the pain of the exams and then coming out the other end and going, what do I do? So that's where because I had that empathy with a certain section, I could niche straight down to that section. I'm going to touch upon actually Peter's question, because I was going to say this as well. Peter's saying, what are the pitfalls of starting an accountancy practice? And I was going to actually ask as well, what were the initial stumbling blocks in setting up Gilchrist & Co? So could you give us a few insights on that?
I think one of the big problems for any accountant, any qualified accountant, any good accountant setting up a new practice from scratch is they're probably already in a really good job.
Yeah.
Getting very well paid as an employee with good prospects. Accountancy is a good career. Once you've got through the exams and you've got that bit of experience, it is a good career, and you're going to have a good career in employment. And it's a risk stepping out of an established employment position where you may have a team of people working for you, the desk is set up, the office is paid for, there could be a company car in there, the respect and all the good stuff that goes with that. And to step out of that and to have absolutely nothing provided, no office, no car, no staff, no clients. When you start your practice, you might not have any clients. And you still have the mortgage to pay, because once you've brought yourself to that space in life where you're a mid-ranking or maybe senior accountant in another practice, you're going to have mortgages and you're going to have children and you're going to have car payments and all that type of stuff. They still all have to be paid. All of that creates an element of fear. Am I going to be able to maintain this after I've left the business? So if you're asking what the biggest stumbling block is, that's it. Because setting up a practice itself doesn't really cost. You can set up a practice with $2,000. You need certain licenses and software and insurances and that type of stuff. You have to go off to the institute and do a practice induction something day, and there's a couple of costs in it. But you literally can start your practice from home with a laptop, the proper software, and the proper licenses and insurances. Away you go. So it's not a cost issue. It's what you're giving up.
It's taking the step over fear to go into the unknown, because you quite rightly say, if you want to set up your own accountancy practice, you can go to the institutes and they should give you some guidance in that as well. So the major stumbling block is taking that first step. The good old saying, Martin, where's the richest place in the world? The richest place in the world is the graveyard, because there are so many unfulfilled ideas.
That's true. Very good.
Absolutely. And people don't take that first step. It's like whenever I woke up in the middle of the night, that October, in the middle of the night in October 16, and I went, why don't I help people through their exams? I could have just went, no, I'm not going to do that. So no, absolutely. So it is taking that first step. So hopefully, Peter, that addresses or looks a bit more your question. Our good old mutual friend, Mr. Declan Barry, says good morning, but I don't know what time zone he's in.
Belfast. Belfast is different.
That's it. And Tom says absolutely brilliant marriage of your relationship and your career. Absolutely. So folks, keep on going with the questions in the comments. In terms of Martin, what about? Well, let's go a wee bit more specific in terms of some of those issues within setting up the practice. So what about pricing? How do you go about, this was always a conundrum with me at the start. How do you go about creating a price for your services for your initial clients?
Okay, well, first of all, you have to know what sort of a lifestyle you need to practice to provide you with. Now, this will be different for everybody. This is what we did. So it doesn't necessarily mean to say, if I was standing in your shoes, we could price in the same way. But what we did, first of all, we worked out what do we need to sustain the livelihood that we want, to live where we want to live, to have the car we want to have the holidays and everything else. How much does that cost a year? And then we broke that down. So if it costs that a year, how much do we need to bill a month? And if that's what we need to bill a month, how much work do we need to do? What's reasonable? 40 hours a week? Would that be reasonable? Therefore, we were able to work out an hourly rate. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. But we don't bill on an hourly rate. We don't bill by the hour. We don't feel that people get value if they're billed by the hour, because they're always wondering, well, have you spent enough hours in this? It's just not a great way to provide a professional service. So what we did then was we averaged that out and said, well, what does the average self-assessment tax return take us to do in time? Because all our clients, as I've just said, are pretty much the same. Yeah. So we worked out what the average was, and then we fixed a fee. So our fixed fee for self-assessment tax returns at the moment is £300. Now, Michelle and I were sitting watching TV last night, and an advert came on for Tax Scout. And they were advertising tax return services for £119. And we went, flip me, £119, that's less than half that we charge. But then it's all about the value. So we just go back to, what is the value that you're getting? So Tax Scout provides a service where you send off your figures and they'll submit the tax return based upon that. Gilchrist & Co provides a service where we know who you are, where you're going to, where you're coming from, what the issues are in your business. If you're the type of person that might have forgot, so for example, we finished the tax return yesterday, where we're doing hundreds of tax returns at the moment, just the time of the year. And we could tell just simply from our review of the system that there were some invoices missing from the tax return that we'd done. When we contacted the client, he said, oh, yes, you're absolutely right. All my American sales were in a separate folder, and I forgot to include them. Now, that would have incurred a penalty and problems and issues for that client further on down the line that Tax Scout, providing that basic service, wouldn't be able to provide. So that's why we're not Tax Scout. But at the same time, we're not PwC. You're not paying us $2,000 for a self-assessment tax return, because PwC isn't focused on small businesses. They're focused on the 15, 20, 100,000 pound a year stuff, that big companies, and small businesses are an afterthought. So we meet with our pricing a sweet spot. We are exactly priced for the type of clients that we want to work with.
And that actually ties everything in, Martin. Absolutely. So what you do is you provide value for your niche and price accordingly to that value.
Yes.
So I think that's a great thing out there. So folks, get your niche, understand your value, and price accordingly. Hopefully that encompasses that. Martin Malseed put up actually a really good point here, in that, especially the last comment there, that the barrier to entry is a calculator, a pencil, and a pad. I actually agree with that. This dovetails actually in with my journey in terms of how to price my value. My very first client, which I think was in January 17, I turned up with a pen and a bit of paper, and I did not know what I was going to say. I didn't know what I was going to price, didn't know what I was going to charge. But again, it's maybe overcoming that fear, Martin, taking the first step and then working it out as you go. Because if perfectionism kicks in and you want to work it out first, you're never going to start. So no, absolutely. And with value, our pricing on that value, I completely agree. I price in the value that I have a 92% pass rate for my exams. I price on the value that thankfully I've had first-time passes in every exam I've done. And and the one thing that you say, I've got a first-class degree in accounting, and the only people who tell that is my dad and you. You tell everybody that I've got a first-class degree in accounting.
But there's a reason for that, James, and that's all to do with credibility. So if you want to get the value that you're worth, you have to be credible to the people that you're speaking to.
Yeah,
no, absolutely. You the world and say, "I'm Martin Gilchrist. I'm fantastic. Look at all the qualifications." People would turn off right away. Mm-hmm. But I'm associated with people that are credible, such as you with your first in accounting, and the fact you went on and did a master's, and all the fantastic stuff that you did. When I look at your LinkedIn profile, James, I'm amazed, at the stuff you've actually done. The credibility that I get out of being able to be associated with you and to tell your story multiplies my credibility. So there's a real value in that to me, as well as just being a really
that's really, really good. Just going on to the career coaching point in that, Martin, is that you're quite right. If someone is a brag, we brag about everything, you're automatically turned off. But it's what I would call having a quiet confidence, or having, showing your value in a modest way. But you've always said this is to have the advocates or people and shouting your message from the rooftops. I shout about Martin Gilchrist and etc., and that absolutely rubs off. So that's fantastic. Tom has actually put up a comment here. What advice would you give someone just starting out, whether considering a major career or business? Now, I'm assuming a major, Tom, is in terms of a degree or a career or a business. Yeah, so I was actually going to talk about let's touch on that, Martin. What tips would you give to any professional starting out in business, other than just taking that first step and overcoming the fear?
Thing is, what is it that defines a professional? Now, there's a whole lot of different routes I could go down in the definition of what it is to be a good professional. But I'm going to pick one, and that is the willingness to take responsibility for yourself and your actions.
Yeah.
Are you willing to be responsible for your studies? Are you willing to be responsible for your job? Are you willing to be responsible for your mistakes? Are you willing to pick up on the mistakes of others and correct them, even though they're not necessarily your fault? Are you professional enough to speak truth to power? When you come across something that isn't right, can you stand your ground and say, I'm going to tell this as it is because I am a professional person. Not only am I being trusted by my client, but I have a role in the business environment and society to make sure that things are done right.
Mm.
That means you have to take responsibility for yourself. And that would be, whether you're right at the start of your career, in the middle of your career, or the end of your career, are you willing to take responsibility for yourself, your actions, and the environment you're in? If so, and think about that all the time. That should be something at the forefront of your mind. Am I taking responsibility here?
I can't agree anymore. That's fantastic, because even in my perspective, exams or building your career, do not be putting that responsibility into the hands of someone else. It's not your tutor or your coach is going to make you pass an exam. We'll give guidance and help. Or if I'm telling someone about steps and how to increase their career, don't be putting that responsibility on my shoulders. I give you all the tools and techniques, but push ahead yourself, because otherwise you're not going to go anywhere with it. So absolutely brilliant. Very good. This is actually a great one as well. If I can just find this question. There's Martin, absolutely. Ron Baker, value pricing, worth reading. That's a really good recommendation, actually. I'll be talking about that. You're not managed by your timesheet. Oh, God, I can remember being managed by a timesheet, all right.
I can't be all.
Carol is my good friend in Skopje in North Macedonia. So Carol is watching us, two guys from County Down, is being viewed in North Macedonia, Martin. Is it possible to get an international client, and wants your advice on how to gain client trust? Which is an excellent question.
Okay, it is possible to get an international client. It's relatively easy to get international clients because of the technology we have. But the question you have to ask, and it's a serious question, do you want them? And why?
That's okay.
Every different now, from my perspective, and when we're talking about a niche accountancy practice looking after a particular client set, the legislation, rules, and regulations outside the UK are different from what we apply when we're looking after our clients. And our regulations, rules, and regulations are already complicated. We have a lot of things that are going on in the back of our minds when we're preparing a set of accounts or a VAT return or payroll or auto enrollment or registering for an EOI number or whatever it is. We have a lot of stuff we need to know, but we're expert in that because we're doing it hundreds of times a week. We're thinking about it all the time. We're reading about it. We're posting about it. We're sharing information on it. We're having conversations about it. If you take on an international client in a different jurisdiction with a different set of laws, and you're a professional person where your value is based upon your knowledge of the environment that you're trying to provide the service for your client, how are you going to maintain that as a small business? Certainly if you're PwC, KPMG, or even one of the big regional practices, you can bring in people or make connections or take time to do that and bill accordingly. But for us, although we can do it, we don't. We do have international clients. We have clients in Australia, South Africa, the US, but these are clients that had businesses originally here in Northern Ireland and have moved abroad, but have maintained a tax registration here. So they're still submitting self-assessment tax returns. So we're getting all the data and the information that we need them from whatever location they are, but we're providing services based on the UK jurisdiction.
Okay, because what I was going to say is we're in the north of Ireland here. We're in a very unique position where, we have got obviously UK jurisdiction and the Republic of Ireland jurisdiction on this one part of this island in terms of the north. So, there is a lot of that toing and froing here. So we are in a quite unique position regarding that, but absolutely agree with that. Kirill, hopefully that helped. And the other point from my perspective is the best way in terms of international reach is LinkedIn. Absolutely. Like myself and Kirill had a conversation there, I think 2 weeks ago. So, County Down in the north of Ireland and Skopje in North Macedonia, absolutely fantastic. So use the power of LinkedIn, and that automatically builds client relationships and client trust if you put yourself out in the proper manner. And that isn't, what I call humble bragging. It is giving out value on this platform in order to build conversations in the direct messages in the background, and then take that to a Zoom call and have good conversations, because goodness knows where that leads to. The conversation, Martin, that me and you had, it could have just fell by the wayside 4 years ago, but look what has come of it. So that's the big thing. How to gain trust is to have honest, open conversations and have no agenda at all. You know what I mean? No hidden agenda of what I would say. Let's quickly just go through a few more of these. Our good friend Declan has talked about referrals, etc. Declan, hold your thunder in that. We will be touching on that. Here we go, Matthew. Matthew should be working for Gilchrist and Co. rather than watching.
To be fair, about these often as Christmas holidays at the moment.
We'll give him that. We'll give him that. Matthew, get back to work. That's what I was going to say.
He's probably
absolutely. So hopefully he's really enjoying it. Really good friend of mine, Peter Connon. Did you ever meet Peter, Martin?
I don't think so. Is he the accountant from Ballynahinch?
No? From Ballymena.
Ballymena
Direction. Peter was actually at my first ever event that Martin Gilchrist here put me under pressure to run. And as a return favor, I said, okay, Martin, I will run my first networking event if you speak at my networking event. And Peter was at that event, which is another great way actually of providing value to people, is to run those events with no expectation. And Martin, you taught me that. Peter's question: how do you ensure your clients know the full value you provide? That's a really difficult question.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Peter. We think about, not all the time, we'll lie in bed thinking about it, but it comes up, it's in our minds. Because when you take away your clients' books, they don't know what you're doing with them. You can be sitting there making paper airplanes with them and put in a figure and send it back. I was sending out a bill. They have to trust you. They have to trust, and they have to have a reason to trust you, to know that they are getting value. Now, the thing is, you can price by the market, so clients can go around and see what other accountants are charging, ring them up and say, I've got a self-assessment tax return, how much you want to do. But it's not the price they're paying that is the full aspect of the value. It's the quality of the work that's being done that they can see. And the issues that aren't going to come down the line, because if you're doing your job well as an accountant, your client won't even know, because they'll not have any issues. It's only when they do have issues that don't get resolved that the client realizes the value of a good accountant. And it's, that's a difficult thing to do. So the way we ensure our clients know that they're getting a full value is our communication with not just our clients, but with the world as a whole. So we communicate through Facebook, we communicate in person through going to networking events and creating our own networking events, and through LinkedIn. And we put out our story, the things we're interested in. We bring people together. And by that communication, people get to know who we are. And they get to make a judgment with, are Martin and Michelle Gilchrist decent, honest, hardworking, diligent people that we would trust to be our accountants? And if the answer to that is yes, well, then we would expect that they value the product that we're putting out to them. It's not just, the tax return at the end of the day. It's the whole picture.
Absolutely.
That's where it comes from.
So if you've got the heading, Martin, Gilchrist and Co. Chartered Accountants, if it's on the front of your accounts, or if it's in the front cover page of a list of advisors, that gives the credibility that you are going to the bank with those accounts, or there's a challenge from the revenue, or whatever that may be. There's that credibility that dealing with, a top class accountancy firm such as Gilchrist and Co. gives you. That's added value. So it's not just the tax return.
Yeah,
it's the credibility that goes along with. So that's a great point, actually. Great point. But absolutely, Peter, as well, is what I would say is, how do people understand your full value? Well, again, I would use LinkedIn to let people understand my full value in terms of, it's not just passing an exam with me. It's not the tools and techniques that I tell, but it's the accountability that I give. So I am going to mark your paper. I will go through with a fine-tooth comb, with a red pen, and go through it in detail and give you that feedback, etc. So, as you say, it's more than just sometimes what people perceive you're providing. It's always a bit more. Absolutely. Just quickly to touch on this one from Declan, and it'll be one of the final questions, Martin. It's going to dovetail into what I was going to ask as well, in terms of what I was going to say is what qualities and skills are necessary for you to be your own boss. And obviously one of these skills is cultivating relationships, which Declan has spoken about there. So any tips, any hints on that?
Yeah, this is one of the areas where I'm proven to be very selfish. And I'm aware of my own personal selfishness in regard to referrals, because I very, very rarely give a referral to anybody for anything, because I know when I give a referral that the person who I'm giving a referral to, i.e. James, go to Declan for your marketing services, they're trusting me to refer them to someone that's going to do a good job.
Yeah.
And I do exactly the same. If you give me a referral, James, and you say, and you give me one today, thank you very much. I'm going to follow up on. But if you give me a referral, I'm trusting the referral upon your credibility.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and if, as we've just discussed, the Gilchrist & Co brand, the Gilchrist & Co name comes with this level of trust, responsibility, respectability, prudence, and all that type of stuff. And I'm handing out referrals left, right, and center. That is one of the quickest ways, apart from doing a really bad job as what it is you're supposed to be doing. Giving out poor referrals is a great way to bring down your reputation. You know, I've seen people's reputations being damaged, certainly in my eyes, by the referrals that they've provided in the past. So I'm always selfish about when I give them out. But on the flip side of that, I really appreciate referrals, because half of our new business that comes in would be directly from personal referrals. And the way I balance that selfishness against the fact I really appreciate referrals is, see, when I get a referral from someone, we look after all our clients. It's not that they get anything different, but I make absolutely sure that every single client that comes through the door is treated in such a way that they will never go back to a referrer and say, you passed me on to Gilchrist & Co and they let me down. That will never happen. Not if it's within my power. I think things can go wrong. You know, I'm not perfect, and you know, things may go wrong, but it is our full intention to treat every client in such a way as if they've been referred to us by the most important person in our network or contacts. You know,
that's really interesting. Brilliant. So, Martin, your know your client procedures and your take on procedures have to be really rock solid in order to do that. That's fantastic. Oh, really, really good. That's absolutely brilliant. So hopefully, Declan's provided something there for you. Really interesting question here. I just want to maybe fire this one across, and I've got my own bit to this. Kervin, do you think AI, artificial intelligence, will affect the future of an accountant? Absolutely. Do I think it'll replace an accountant? Not fully. I do think that within the next 5 to 10 years, the term accountant may be redundant. I think it'll be replaced by business partner or business advisor or purely advisor. Because, Martin, you probably see this more than most, is that the cloud-based accounting or whichever piece of AI or tech that does in numbers 90% of the numbers 90% of the time. We've touched on this. It's the relationship that you build. It's the advice that you give. It's the fact that someone can ring you up and has got a query that a robot isn't going to answer, and they want that comfort from someone. So that's what I would say, Kervin. Go and develop your soft skills. Go and develop your people skills and your influence with others. That's definitely something I would talk about. Anything else, Martin?
Again, this is a whole subject. You could write a book on this.
Completely. Oh, you could. I've got books on this.
But the thing I would pin down on is context. So your understanding of context. Everything that you look at, touch, smell, taste, involve yourself in, is within the context of your context. And context is made up of all the experiences, happenings, issues, problems, successes that go on in your life. So your context, James, is different from my context when you're viewing any particular thing. And a chartered accountant is a context machine. Basically what you're doing is you're taking all this information from all these different sources and you're putting it all together to produce a set of accounts that actually reflect not just the figures, but the truth of the figures behind it, and providing your client with information. Computers can't do context. Because they're not out in the world having conversations. They're not reading articles on LinkedIn or YouTube or whatever they may be. They're not having face-to-face meetings. They can't see the client's face and see where they are in relation to stress or anxiety or hope or all that information, which you have to go out into the world and experience and have built up over time, gives you the context and be able to be a proper, full, appropriate professional advisor. And you're absolutely right, James. Things like posting transactions will ultimately be done by machines.
I'm going to say one thing on that, right? That's probably because I've got draft 1 finished of double entry bookkeeping. This book that I'm writing is that you always, I think, may need a journal occasionally, because the machine can still mess something up. So therefore, you still need to know your double entry bookkeeping, the fundamentals of accountancy. So absolutely. Sorry, go on ahead, Martin.
Yeah, and the thing about the machines thing is, even the bank, so Ulster Bank at the moment, or NatWest, gives away free accounting software. And in that free accounting software, there's an issue where you can just click your expenses as you're putting them onto your debit card, and there's an automatic reconciliation in there. There's a lot more, even to the most simple set of accounts in reconciliations, than simply doing the reconciliation. And if any client was to rely on that and just hit the button and say, yeah, there's my tax, all my expenses, there's all my income, boom, I'm hitting the button, they're going to be paying more tax than they should. And they could potentially get themselves in quite a bit of trouble, because there's an awful lot more that goes on in the background of that. Plus, they're not receiving any advisory at all in relation to how they could potentially make their business more efficient, more effective, save money, make money, and everything else that a good accountant should be able to bring to the table. So be careful. Automation's dead simple, but it doesn't do the job by itself. And I would certainly recommend to anybody, be careful of automation, because there's a lot more to it than transactions.
I may not say, me, Martin, I don't say things as eloquently as you. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this for my top tip. Folks, get your ass out of your seat, off the screen, and go and talk to people. If you are based in business, go and talk to people in the business. Go and talk to your stakeholders. Go and talk to your clients, because the reputation and the stereotype of the accountant, who is the introvert stuck behind a screen, does not exist anymore. And that's what I'm all about with my business, Martin. I am not necessarily creating the next generation of accountants. What I want to do is to create the next generation of dynamic business people to go and live the life that they want. But part of that is not going to be AI. Yes, you have to go and learn about that technically, but you have to become a more rounded person as well. So absolutely agree. Absolutely. Martin, Tom has given us a quick comment. High touch becomes increasingly important as high tech increases. Absolutely. So you've got to have more touch points, because it takes away that personality. Absolutely agree. Last question, Martin. That 20 minutes has now taken up 45 minutes, as always with us.
Yeah.
Sure. And plus the sun is just, believe it or not, it's sunny in Ireland. My God. The sun is actually blinding me. I thought it was my halo, but it's not. It's the sun. Okay, fun question. I'm going to give my own particular view in this one for you. What's the most useless talent that Martin Gilchrist has?
Most of what I do is useless, James. How do you pick out of a long list of
I
stuff?
was going to say cut trees.
Oh yeah, I love cutting.
But you're actually quite good at doing that, but the wrong trees.
Yeah, when you bring out power lines and hit roofs and stuff with them, I don't think that's what you can classify as good. Yeah. I think, for the context of this conversation, one of the talents I have, which isn't really a talent, but something that I really enjoy, is finding weird and wonderful ways to bring people together. How can I get 10, 15, 20, 50 good people that I admire and respect into a room? And to be honest, I don't really care what the context is. It's getting them together, because magic happens when you do that. Magic will happen by itself. And if I can be part or an instigator of that magic, I'm winning right away. And over the years, we've done that in many. So, James, you and me have done a couple of things together, from hosting dinners to talking events, and the list goes on.
But Martin, it's not even that. We've done walks together. We've climbed mountains together. We've actually had networking on up top of the highest mountain in the north of Ireland. We've had a networking meeting, like it's mental.
Yes.
And that's the thing.
That is exactly what I'm talking about. That sense of every business meeting or every opportunity to connect with someone in business doesn't have to be in some hotel lobby or booked room where you're eating stale sandwiches. There's so many ways that you can do that. And if there's one thing that I can put on my CV to say, you know what, I have evidence and proof that I've done that well now for many, many years, and some of the proudest things I've done are the stuff I've done with the likes of you or I could make a big long list. Declan, who's on the wall there, Peter, that's where I've had the most learning, the most inspiration, the most fun, the most opportunity, all the good stuff I bring people together. So that's it. That's my useless skill.
Absolutely. Well, actually, the useless skill is what I have defined as you're the king of networking, as I've called you many, many times. Even to the fact that, I put myself and another mutual friend of ours, Kevin, put on a bus run to go and visit the sacred sites of County Down, these cultural sites. Even you can even argue we've had networking meeting at St. Patrick's Grave. You know what I mean? Which is very, very true. So there's many, many ways and means to do it. Martin, we could talk all day as we normally do. Okay. By the way, we both share a love of strawberry milkshakes as well.
You won't be telling anybody that. Once it goes on the internet, it's there forever.
Well, hey, hold on, Martin. We've done enough live interviews together that we've said enough on the internet. Absolutely. No, absolutely. Folks, hopefully you really enjoyed that. Thank you all very much for your comments, your thoughts, your contributions. And Martin, as always, it's a pleasure. All the very best, folks. Take care. Bye-bye.